This is the typical scenario whenever anybody mentions hygge these days. And they have been mentioning that word quite a lot in recent years. The word was granted entry into the Oxford English Dictionary back in 2016. I think it has to do with an interest in lots of things Scandinavian at the time, although strangely part of that interest was also in a Nordic crime series, the opposite presumably of hygge. Considering that my mother tongue is not usually regarded as particularly attractive in the eyes of the world, it's nice to know that we can contribute at least one little word. On the other hand, I also think, what have people been doing? Have they been lacking this word? Everybody's been donning knitted socks and lighting fires and candles and drinking tea. They were just missing that one word for it. Now they have it. I decided I would record this video up in my soon-to-be repainted office with this flowery wallpaper. I figured it would add to the whole quirky, cozy ambiance. The painter who saw it suggested that it would be something that hyacinth bouquet would have. First I thought, that's true, funny. And then I thought, wait a minute, are you saying I'm kind of matronly, old, English? But then I thought, yes, flowery, over the top, too much rose-colored wallpaper. Any Dane who's into minimalism would comment on that. And let's face it, it's pretty far from the Nordic minimalism that the world knows us for these days. And frankly, I think it's kind of a mystery that the Nordic noir and the hygge sort of hit the world at the same time. Let me just also add that this was actually my daughter's room. When she became a teenager, the flowers were no longer cool at all, so she passed it on to me. However, and I don't mean to burst any bubbles here, but we typically don't actually snuggle up in front of a fireplace or light candles or drink mugs of hot cocoa in order to feel hygge. In fact, we often don't use that noun at all. So seeing as I'm Danish, I thought I would just adjust the word a little or expand the concept of it, grammatically speaking. Since the word is actually pronounced hygge, a word which would be impossible for most foreigners to pronounce, we completely forgive the dictionary for suggesting that it's pronounced hygge. And please, make merry with the word by all means. Use it to your heart's content. We've done the same with plenty of English words over the years, twisting and turning and mispronouncing them. If I may just provide you with a few examples of that before I carry on with hygge. The word weekend, for instance, it's an English invention, so why come up with a Danish ditto? So the people on the street, including me, will say something like weekend, go weekend, that sort of thing. For some reason, newscasters on television will say weekend, like some kind of Anglo-Danish hybrid. I never knew why. Then there's the word dollar. We have the same word, it's just pronounced dollar. So if you say something like $500, we'll say $500, because adding an S in the plural is not an option in Danish. Incidentally, in that connection, this is weird. I don't know if you remember that series in the 1980s called Dynasty, but that was renamed Dollars in Danish, which is strange because back then they would allow the S on. That has been lost over time. And also there is a Danish word called dynasty, which is exactly the same as dynasty. So that was just kind of a mystery. My final example is the word nice. Danish young people have decided that it's a lot better to use nice instead of cool. They used to say cool, but cool is no longer cool. So now they'll say nice. Nice does not mean cool in English, but they've decided that it does in Danish. So they'll say stuff like, det er nice, or det er mega nice. And of course, we've imported all the English swear words, but that's another story. So this is just to set the record straight on a few points, just FYI. For one thing, we can hygge in the summer too. Candles are not actually a prerequisite, nor are knitted socks needed. And we don't necessarily need mugs of tea or cocoa either. Food often, though, is involved, not necessarily, but often. For another, we don't use the noun form as much as non-Danes seem to be doing. We'll often use the adjective hyggelig. Hyggelig. For instance, you could say, that's a hyggelig little town you've got there. Or, wow, your living room is really hyggelig. Or somebody asks you, so how was your evening? It was really hyggelig. That sort of thing. We also use the reflexive verb a lot, to hygge sig. If you're not that familiar with grammar or other languages, it might be a little difficult to understand, but they have the similar form in German, for instance, sich vorstellen, or in French, se rappeler, where they have this little reflexive pronoun. In English, that's not a construction that you use as much, at least not so tied together. You can say to wash yourself, but then you would often use wash without it. Hygge, not possible. You have to have the little sig or yourself. Hygge sig. So sure, it usually means something like to have a good time, but emphatically not a rowdy kind of time. Just sort of hanging out, having a pleasant time together. But rustic sweaters, let me just make that clear, are not necessarily involved. So while hygge has this sort of ambiance going for it, the verb form simply means to have a good time. A parent might open the door to his 10-year-old's room and the 10-year-old has a playmate over, and the parent might say, hygger ja? Are you hygging yourselves? No lighted candles in the vicinity, likely not even food. Or if we've been chatting to friends and we're getting to the goodbye part, we might say, I må hygge jer. Hygge yourselves. It means to take care, see you later. Or if you're really minimalist and suave, you might just go for the very shortened version, hygge. On that note, I hope you're all able to hygge yourselves during this month of January, which is dark and gray and cold up here in my part of the world. But make sure that you bring the hygge with you into the spring. Thanks for watching.